The building system in Deadlock has changed drastically, and here's everything that you need to know to maximize your builds. Hello Twitchies! Today we're going to be talking about how the build system has changed pretty drastically in the last patch here in Deadlock in a couple of different ways. So first up, we're just going to hit kind of one of the small changes. But nowadays in Deadlock, you actually get 9 items off of the bat. So you're going to be able to fill in 9 different item slots here. Typically it was 8. This is how Deadlock has been for a hot minute, was only 8 items. Now you actually get 9 item slots at the start of the game with 3 flex slots that you have to unlock. Obviously, this leads to you being able to open up your build a little bit more at the start. The way that you get those flex slots now is just the 3 walkers. So beforehand, they had changed a bunch of different systems. It was like, get a couple of guardians down, get all the guardians down, grab some walkers, grab some base guardians, grab... Super simplified now. It is just for every walker on the enemy team that goes down, you unlock a flex slot for your build. This has actually led to, funny enough, a restriction in the amount of builds, but not directly because of this. It's actually because of the next change that we're about to talk about. So while you have 1 additional flex slot now, it is traditionally harder to unlock those 3 other flex slots when you're behind now. They've done some changes to make it a little bit different. Now when you slay a walker, the HP of the other walkers actually changes as well, which is kind of an interesting mechanic. But in general, your build should really be based around 9 items, because if you are the team that's behind, honestly, getting a walker is pretty hard now. They're just super duper tanky, which means split pushing the walker is a little bit more difficult, actually a lot a bit more difficult, which means you have to group up and kind of win a team fight in order to get a walker. Obviously, if you're the team that's behind, winning a team fight and getting a walker is more difficult than just like having an Ivy or a Wraith split push and get you that flex slot. So really honing in on your 9 items is quite important now for the build. That way it does work even if you're behind and you don't have all your flex slots unlocked. And now for the big change. The big change to the builds is looking down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You're going to see a little star at the 4.8K marker on Spirit, on Vitality, and on Weapon. Hitting this 4.8K marker is now the meta for all builds. The reason is if you look up below that build, you get 7% weapon damage increase for 800 souls, right? All the way up, you get 20% for 3.2K. When you make that jump from 3.2K to 4.8K, you get a 29% increase in weapon investment for that additional 1.6K souls. Meaning that additional 1.6K souls is basically giving you double the value of the 3.2K soul investment that you made before it. This is essentially true for all of the investments here. Vitality is basically just straight doubling it. But for all of these, hitting 4.8K is absolutely crucial. And that means that pretty much the meta now revolves around getting to that 4.8K marker in a certain field and then immediately switching your build to getting 4.8K somewhere else for that massive power spike. So for example, here on Geist, let's go ahead and sell all of these items and you can see how it's going to be starting. This is our Gungeist build. All of our builds have basically been republished in order to utilize this 4.8K build system. So whether you're trying to play 7, Kelvin, Geist, Vindicta, whatever, all of the builds that we have out there, we have builds for most characters. They should essentially all be updated at this point. It's what I spent last week doing. So if you build Mystic Regen, Mystic Burst, Mystic Expansion, right? This is going to bring us up to a 2.4K investment. Radiant Regen is another 2.4K. That brings us up to that 4.8K marker. You can see no green items, no gun items, right? Strictly Spirit in order to get us up on Geist to that 4.8K marker, which gives us that 45 bonus Spirit on top of course, any of the Spirit we would get from our items if we had something like that, right? As soon as we're done with that, we can immediately switch over, grab ourselves a Cultist Sacrifice for 3.2 and a Kinetic Dash for 1600. This is going to bring us up to that 4.8K marker, so we get that 49% weapon damage increase, and then we can go into an Enduring Speed and a Spirit Resilience, another 1.6 3.6 into 3.2, bringing us up to that 4.8K investment. So you can see how early game across the board, getting those numbers up to 4.8K is massively important right now, because every time you do it for every single spirit vitality weapon investment, you get a massive boon that's essentially doubling the effectiveness of the souls that you've spent up until that point. So obviously this has changed the meta in the characters that can utilize a variety of build. So what that means is characters like Geist, right? Geist has a great early spirit damage and then can transition into a much tankier gun build. She's really enjoying this meta now because of that. Mirage being able to get himself a QSR, right, and a surge of power, really enjoying this early game right now because he can get himself a little bit of extra damage. He can get himself the surge of power, right? This is going to bring him up to 4.8K. And then, of course, you can get your gun items in order to get up to 4.8K as well, getting a massive benefit from that because he's got good spirit damage output with Dejin's Mark while also being able to build into gun. Now, something you should know as well is that all of these investments are not treated equally. At the end of the game, gun is massively more viable. So you can see here we're 49%, and it's going to scale all the way up to 135%. Compared to Spirit, we're at 45 and we're only scaling to 101. So if we go ahead and double that 45, that's basically 90. If we double this, it's basically 100%. Significantly more late game damage increased on the weapon investment side than there is on the Spirit side, which is why we're leaning into that gun meta right now, because if the game goes later, and for a lot of levels outside of the very top level of gameplay, right, you're going to see longer games, gun going to be way more effective, particularly after like the 25-minute marker. So besides the fact that characters like Wraith and Geist and Mirage are having a great time and loving life right now, something that you should know about building in general is that Cultist Sacrifice is the best that it's ever been. Cultist Sacrifice did not get directly buffed in this last patch, but it did get indirectly buffed through a couple of means. So one, Cultist Sacrifice has essentially always been a meta item in Deadlock for anybody that was going to be farming the jungle. It gives you more souls and essentially pays for itself. Right now, if you use Cultist Sacrifice, give or take 4 times, it's essentially a free item, which means that you're getting all of the bonus of the power spike, all of the extra farm, and then you can sell it after you've used it 4 or 5 times, and then you're just making money off of the item. It literally generates cash. But the reason why it's so strong right now is because they buff the amount of souls that the jungle gives, and because this instantly clears the camp and gives you bonus souls, it means that the amount of bonus souls that you're getting is actually more now because the base value of the camp has gone up, and because the camps are tankier, being able to instantly clear that tier 3 camp is even more valuable, and they made all of the camps do more damage, and because this gives you that bullet resistance versus NPCs, it actually allows you not only to do bonus damage to the camps, but to take less damage from the camps. And that damage that the camps do, particularly in the early to mid game, is actually quite important, because if you take too much poke from those camps and have to back, you're missing out on so much farm compared to just sitting there, tanking a little bit less damage and then going directly back to the wave and sticking around and not having to worry about backing to base and healing, even without necessarily grabbing sustain items. So, hybrid characters are in right now, being able to hit just that 4.8K marker in Spirit and then going full gun. Massively important. Same thing with the Vitality. Even if you're going to be on a damage character, whether you want to get your gun in Spirit first and going straight into the damage, do make sure that you grab yourself that 4.8K in Vitality, even on damage characters. Even if you're playing Wraith or whatever and you just want to go full-blown damage because it's so fun, do yourself a favor, get that 4.8K. If you really, really don't know what to build on the defense side of things, Battle Vest right now, always a good option. It gives you weapon damage and fire rate. Bullet meta is in, so having some bullet resistance is good, and it gives you out of combat regen. Insanely good 1600 value item. Get yourself a debuff remover. With that debuff remover, probably the most undervalued item in the game outside of top level play. Top level play, every single character in the game is going to have debuff remover. 1, 30% debuff resist is just insanely valuable. 2, being able to purge a negative effect on you is just insanely valuable. But 3, on top of everything else, this meta, Focus Lens has become massively, massively meta overnight. They basically changed capacitor effect, and they did a little switching on some of these items. So Focus Lens now, 6,400 cost item, gives you fire rate. It does the minus 12% spirit resist and minus 30 spirit power, which is, to be fair, a lot of minus spirit power. It is a 12-second duration, but of course it also does a portion of all damage dealt, 30% specifically. During that, silence gets applied to the target when it wears off. You can remove Focus Lens with a debuff remover. Pretty much you're going to see at least 2 or 3 focus lenses every single game. So buying a debuff remover in order to remove it it's not really optional right now. I would say debuff remover absolutely mandatory in all of your purchases. And then another one you should consider is Enduring Speed. Enduring Speed, once again, out of combat regen, you can see you could stack that with the Battle Vest as well, and then you get that plus 2.25 movement speed. And the slow resist, same theoretical part with debuff remover, 30% debuff resistance, 30% slow resistance. Getting CC'd less is strong. Finally, the last thing you need to be considering in these builds, we talked about it at the very start of this, those 9 slots that you get is crucial because it is harder to unlock those flex slots. So when you're building your character, preferentially, what you would like right now is a 3.2k item and a 1.6k item. This means that you can get to that 4.8k investment with maximum effectiveness, maximum quickness, right? Taking up the minimum amount of slots. So that's only going to take up 2 slots right now. If I was going to get my green items, I could grab my Battle Vest and my debuff remover, hit that 4.8k, 2 items, 3.2 and 1.6. Once again, you're getting the maximum investment, maximum value out of those items. That way, I can spend the rest of my time putting a bunch of money into gun. This is what you're going to want to do on a lot of characters. So let's go ahead and just remove 1 item here. That's my 9 slots, right? That way I can push my weapon investment as far as humanly possible. That is going to be my main stat on Mirage, which is the one I want the most of. Whatever your main stat is, you want the other 2 to basically be exactly at 4.8, utilizing those 2 items. Obviously, if you could get it in 1 item, cool beans, then you can go ahead and get rid of another item. That is fantastic. But in the early to mid stages of the game, you're going to be doing that 3.2k and 1.6k investment in Vitality and Spirit. That way you can put all of the rest of your money into gun and get the maximum value out of gun, even if you only have those 9 flex slots. So hopefully that helped you guys kind of learn how building is working right now. Those are your priorities when building in Deadlock. Hit those 4.8Ks. Try to utilize only 2 items to get to it. That way you've got 5 items left over to put into your main aspect, whether you're building mainly tanky, mainly gun, or mainly spirit. Doesn't matter. Prioritize getting that cultist on like literally every character right now for getting additional farm. And then of course you got to make sure you have that debuff remover right now because it's just simply too valuable. You're going to get it on every single character. If you want builds, that is what you need to be doing when you're making your own custom builds. Those strategies, regardless of what items that you use, are going to help make your builds more efficient. They're going to help them also be more valuable within games that you're losing and you don't have all of those flex slots unlocked. If you just want to use a build, we've got builds up for a lot of characters. Incon's Mirage in the Desert. We got 7 and Grey, Talon, and Vindicta, and I've edited all these builds to kind of be more streamlined to get you those bonus values as soon as possible for each of the characters to make them maximally effective. So hopefully you learned something here today, guys. If you did, you know, all the YouTube stuff helps out, liking and commenting and subscribing. I know it's weird and lame to hear YouTubers say that, but it's the only thing really we can do out here that helps. So thank you for those of you guys that do to help keep the stream and content dream alive. And if you want to go the extra mile, down below in the description, we've got a partnership with Cook Unity right now, 50% off in that first box. And honestly, the food is freaking delicious. And if you don't want to be cooking after Thanksgiving, I totally get it. Get that shipped right to your front door. And then if you want to play a free game to help support the Twitchiest community, Dark Epoch, also listed in the description down below. Just downloading the game on your computer and making an account helps support us, even if you don't play the game. So I appreciate those of you guys that do. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, folks, have a Twitchin' day, y'all.